Hi, and welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. I'm Chris Lucian, and our co-host is Austin Chadwick. And today we have Ben Kovitz to talk to us about mobbing in a class setting, and then kind of as he goes through his story, maybe he'll have some questions for us. But first, Ben, could you give us a little bit of an introduction, and then we can get into the topic?
Sure. I was a software developer for, I don't know, 15 or 20 years, a little bit on and off, hard to count them, and a few other things. Then I went and got a PhD, and now I'm teaching computer science at Cal Poly Humboldt in Northern California.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. So as I understand it, your class had you started with mobbing in the class, and so we're all always really curious how mobbing ends up in academia. We started in very much like in a business context, and so we've heard some stories here and there. But I guess how did you come across mobbing? What made you decide that it should be part of your class, and how's it been going?
Okay, th this can be a long story. Um,
Good.
let's see. So I first heard of mobbing about a year and a half ago. And I'll tell you, I love pair programming. It's like one of my absolute favorite things when it goes well. Not when it goes badly, but when it goes well, it's like it's one of my very favorite things in life. It's just euphoric.
Mhm.
Uh, and then I heard about mob programming. I thought, okay, as much as I like pairing, this sounds like too much of a good thing. And partly it's because when I was in grad school, I would, be teaching classes and I would have the students pair. And, whenever I would see three students at one computer, there would always be two students who were pairing and one who was on their phone checking their email.
Mm.
Uh, and I just thought, well, if you have more than two, you just don't have the same magic. Um, well, I was wrong. That's like there were, I think, a couple more ingredients to put into the soup to make it cook. But um, okay, so next part of the story. I just started a year and a half ago at teaching, and I was asked, "So Ben, can you teach the software design course?" And in the spring, and I thought, oh my God, what is software design? You ask two different people, you're going to get two different answers. And also, how do you teach it, right? This sounds like I have no idea how you teach software design. I didn't learn any of this stuff from in college. I'm self-taught on all this stuff. So um, anyway, I struggled, brainstorming and consulting with people, asking people for ideas, and trying to come up with ideas, and not getting anywhere. One way of running the class that I rejected very early was, let's have 30 lectures twice a week with me pontificating about good design, right? So just like, okay, that's not going to do it. Um, and I thought the only way you can actually learn to design software is to design software. And also you really need to close the feedback loop, right? If you just make designs, but you don't actually write the code, you don't learn what actually works. You don't get, to design well, you kind of have to have a feeling for what's it gonna turn into when it's code. And also you have to have a sense of, when you actually get into the code, the design's going to change because you're going to realize, oh, wait, I didn't think of that with, all kinds of problems. So, so yeah, so I was talking, we're coming down to the wire on spring semester. Like a couple of weeks left. Okay. And like I'd kind of had a course plan I'd worked out with another friend of mine. And Rebecca Wolfsbrook and I were talking, and I had hired her as a consultant to help design the course. And she mentioned mob programming, that she's been doing it, and it's like she says it's a lot of fun and it's been really productive. So, oh really? Let's hear more about that. And then um, a little more talking, and then I had the design for the course. Here's the course design. First 2 weeks or so, we do some like regular design exercises. We do some readings. Well, we do a little we do like a UML thing. Um, then we mob for most of the rest of the semester on one non-trivial piece of software. So we write all the code collaboratively in class. So there's no, you have to go out of class, and if you don't think of something, if you don't hit on the idea I hoped that you would hit on, then you lose points. Like none of that. Um, and then in the last, we're only halfway through the semester now, and then toward the end, we'll do some a little more like typical design stuff of the kind that they ask you in interviews today, like design Twitter, that sort of thing. That'll be more design without coding. So that's the long story of how I came to it.
Nice, nice,
And by the way,
nice.
I never have, before doing the course, did not ever do any mob programming. So it's a scary thing. I don't actually know how to do this. That's why I talked with you and with Woody Zool,
Yeah.
and I got a lot of input from you. Um, and yeah, the extra ingredients that went into the soup that I think were absolutely crucial to make this work were number one, we have a rotation with a timer. So in this class, fortunately, there are only 7 students enrolled in the class. That was another thing. Like, oh, we can do this class differently. The major software engineering is new, so we don't have many students yet in the upper division. So it's like beautiful timing to try this. But the rotation was one thing, so that keeps everyone moving. And also, and the other one, maybe even bigger, was the strong pairing idea, where no idea gets into the computer until it's been goes through the hands of someone other than the person who thought of it. And we do that very, very strictly. And I tell you, it's fantastic because um, so we're not developing the software as fast as I think we could be. We could be, but it's students, right? We're all learning how to do this. But the reason it's so great is um, the mobbing spreads the knowledge so fast, right? Way faster than me lecturing about it, or even homework assignments.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and yeah, thanks for that origin story and talking about the knowledge spread. Um, and so I think for me, I can think of knowledge spread happening in like let's say a mob of 3 or 4. I've kind of seen what that's like. I'm guessing your mob, what's your mob size? Is it right now?
It's 8, including
It's
me,
eight.
because I just mob with the other students. I'm just in the rotation.
Very good, very good. And so what's an example of like what's the knowledge spread look like? Like does it start with I don't know, student navigating something and then that leads to something or other? Like if you got an example, that'd be great to hear.
Yes, I have an example. Uh,
Okay.
so on like the first or second day we were mobbing, um, and I can tell you more about what the project, what the thing was. But
Mm.
one student says, "Oh, can you?" The navigator says, can you instead of an if statement? Oop, I'm getting balloons. Um, um, uh, instead of an if statement, can you just reverse the true false on this one variable? And the driver didn't know how to do that, right? And this is something that it's as a teacher in a college course, you have to deal with students who have a wide range of knowledge, and it's not knowledge is not just like a scalar variable, right? It's like, well, some people know this, some people know that, right? And it's like, how do you reach them all? Well, mobbing, right? You just right. So the driver said, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." And the navigator said, "Oh, just put an exclamation point in front of it." Like, "Oh, really?" And so the driver now knows that the negation operator in C++. How long did that take? Less time than it took me to tell the anecdote.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, and I guess that sounds very similar to my experience of learning. So for example, like this morning, where I was mobbing with my team, and then the prior day, a couple people were out, so I had a little bit of time of experimenting with the code. And I think, oh, that's right. So for the audience, you don't know, Ben actually visited as a mob programmer with us, and I think you were there on the day we were working with Hex. Does that ring a bell, Ben? I remember
We,
hexadecimal.
we were
Yeah.
working with hexadecimal, and I yeah,
Yes. And so a response came back. It didn't, whatever I was trying to do didn't work. And I'm just like, I don't speak hex. And but what was amazing is when the team came back, they're like, "Oh yeah, just use this or that tool," and then boom, like we had an answer and an insight. And so, yeah, like what you said, or someone shares. I guess maybe one follow-up question I have is, what did it look like for, let's say you have, so you had a strict driver and a strict navigator, is that right? And then is the rest of the class, what's their kind of activity like? Yeah.
Okay, so they're mobbers, and I told them about some of the roles, like on that
Okay.
you had on the like the
Hmm.
researcher role. I didn't tell them about there's one that was something like the police officer role,
Yeah, traffic cop. Yeah.
traffic cop. That's it. Um, but um, but they so and I know I've kind of wondered about this because when you have eight people in the rotation, it's easy to get disengaged. I got a little concerned about that. And by the way, one thing I learned from our mobbing session at Hunter was that you got the rotation down to 3 minutes because you said that remotely that keeps everyone engaged. And I'm thinking, problem solved. We don't have it down to 3 minutes in the class because I think it takes a little time for each person to kind of settle in. When the three of us were mobbing that one day, um, it was like handing off was like effortless, right? Because we were all kind of in the task. But for these students, they're getting used to it. They don't, they don't. I'm pushing them to a pretty high level of C++. We're learning the Qt or Qt the library. Um, we're learning mobbing, right? This like I mean, they don't have years of experience writing software, so
Right.
they have to go slowly. And C++. It's it's you know um it can be a lot to take in, right? You gotta
Oh
take it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
I think my computer science degree was largely in C++. plus plus. Was the same for you, Chris? Yeah, because
Yes.
Chris
Yeah.
and I were the same program. So
Although the school itself has shifted to Python since
what?
then.
Oh, funny. Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, C++, plus plus, you can do a lot, but there's also a lot of places to be confused. It's the short for me.
Oh, yeah, a lot of way there are a lot of sharp pointy sharp points on that thing that hurt yourself on.
Yeah, working with C++ plus plus is like working with very sharp knives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing, you can make an exquisite meal. If you don't, then you
Yeah.
might be in shreds. Well, so one thing I think that is also a key aspect of this, and maybe it's something you can experiment with. I don't know, but in our context, we do a lot. We have the law of personal mobility, which is if you're not contributing and you're not learning, go to a different mob. And so sometimes it might be good, especially with eight, to split into two groups of four. And even when we're growing, when we're scaling up the team, it's kind of modeled after cellular division, right? So you just like keep adding people into the mob until it feels like we're good and everybody's learned enough, and then you can like split. And and then there's also another great pattern that might be useful to you, which is in Japan, there's a company that does a linking navigator pattern where they rotate back and forth between two mobs where they spend a full time in a rotation on one mob and then go to another mob and spend a full time in a rotation. So as the instructor, that's certainly something that you could try doing as a linking navigator context. And you can experiment with all kinds of things like messaging or, two microservice system or a client and a server. So there's certainly some things that you can explore in those areas. But certainly, if it feels like it's dragging on a bit and you can't lower the rotation time, another thing to try and do is to split into two mobs, right? Um,
Okay. Uh,
and then if the mob feels like it's like even if you're at three people and you're thinking let's go to two or one, that's when I would argue that probably that work can be automated. So some level of meta programming or script generation or something like that. And so I think that mobs and tend to hover between like four to six, and then often they'll split once they kind of get past that that point in six. Usually, but I've also seen highly yeah engaged like 20-person mob, but it was like on a quantum computer API where some people understood quantum and some people understood the language that was being written in, and some people, and so there was a lot of like popcorn style stuff, but everybody was like really interested and really wanted to be there. Um, so yeah, it's just food for thought.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thanks for telling me that. I hadn't heard about the. I like this idea of the what do you call it? The
Linking navigator.
linking navigator. Yeah. Um, so I've had the idea of splitting into two mobs kind of in my back pocket, kind of ready to play when the need for it arises. But two things are holding me back. One is, everyone's still kind of learning the same thing,
Right.
and so it's like, well, I'm not sure what we would how we would break up the current task right now. But I think thanks for reminding me. I've kind of been forgetting about it. The other thing that's holding me back is we're in a classroom that has one projector.
Mm. Yeah.
Of course, is there any harm in just having a few people crowded around a laptop? That works too. But that projector has been our focal point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I guess you're not the first professor or teacher I heard who mobs with the whole classroom. Like the whole class is one mob. And yeah, and I mean there are pros and cons for it. I mean, what's you started to talk about the different mob roles, but I guess what are some examples you've seen students do who are not the driver and navigator, who are part of the rest of the six or whatever?
Oh, the most common I see is looking in documentation,
Okay.
right? Especially because we went with the Qt library. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a GUI library for C++, and it's super duper duper refined and powerful, which means it's awfully complex. So there's a lot of just trying to figure out what's going on with that, and there's a ton of documentation to read. Um, and I've been kind of assigning that as an outside of the class reading. Um, but and then another one is just you know uh, we're actually um, I think a lot of what the mobbers do is help navigate, right? They
Mm.
We're not really all that strict about who's the navigator. Usually, the way it works is the navigator stands up and by the whiteboard and points and stuff like that, and everyone else is sitting down. So there is like we all know who the navigator is, but lots of people are saying, "Oh, could you do this?" Right? There's a lot there. I think you mentioned that day when I mobbed with Hunter that like some mobs are really strict that the navigator does the talking, maybe the driver a little bit to clarify, and other mobs were like what ours was, which was everybody was just talking all the time. Ours
Right.
is in the class we've been doing it more, everyone's kind of talking. So
Nice.
sometimes I see a couple of students um doing something on their laptop and I start a little worrying a little bit. Uh-oh, are they not engaged? Are they Googling something else. But then they say like, "Oh, I just Googled this and I found you can do that." So
Yeah, certainly a researcher role in that regard.
Nice.
Um, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes, it almost, you know, because like you were saying, mobbing kind of scales to the level that's needed at that moment, right? So, maybe for some students, a large mob is kind of like a quantum computing mob for professional industries, right? Where the level of research required is high. And like you said earlier, Chris, the law of personal mobility, if you're learning and contributing, then you're in the right place. So
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for reminding me of the law of mobility. I'm gonna tell that to the students. I haven't mentioned that.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can
nice.
always do a like engagement level survey, or so there's like this fist of five thing where it's like, okay, at the count of three, everybody just raise your hand and hold up the number of fingers. Five fingers is I'm still learning a lot. Three fingers is I'm learning somewhat in between, and like a closed fist is like I'm not learning anything right now, and it's very hard to stay engaged. So
Oh,
you just do three, two, one, fist of five, and then like, oh, you're, like, could you help us start another mob or a pair and go and work on this aspect of the project? That will, so we've certainly done stuff like that in kind of the very beginnings of mobbing when we were still trying to figure this stuff out. Um,
right.
and so yeah, you should be able to kind of just get a temperature of what's going on, and then you can coach, right, in that regard, and be like, well, this would be the appropriate thing to do if you saw this out in the wild, right, while you're doing software programming. And yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, one follow-up question I had was the, you know, at the end of a mob session, like the one you joined on ours, when you're done, you ship it and then you move on to the next thing. But in a classroom, what is the, so maybe for a classroom session, you ship it or, check it in or whatever. Um, but what are the final stages of the class? Is there a test? Was this the test? Like, how does that part work?
Oh yeah, I figure, since it's a college and colleges are degree granting institutions, which means you have to do assessments, I will give them a final exam at the end of all this. Um,
Uh,
um, you know, another thing I have them do, one of their kind of like ongoing assignments outside of class is write down what did you learn that day during the mobbing session or during class.
hmm.
And so, and I have them give those to me every so often. So I'm thinking I'm going to make sure that they know some of the certain there's certain things I want them to know about software design, like know how to do certain design patterns, know, I have got a huge list of topics in the syllabus, and I said I don't know what percentage of these topics we're going to cover. We're going to cover as many as come up naturally. But anyway, I'm going to make it clear this is what the exam will be about. I'm still kind of unsure about how to do that.
Uh, you know, I think one thing is also don't be afraid of repetition. So if you have source control and you need to navigate a design pattern, you could, you know, check the code in as it is, have one person navigate through the solution, then commit that to a branch with their name on it, go back to the main branch and undo the change, have the next person navigate the exact same thing. And so, we also,
Oh,
so there's kind of an axiom that I like to say in mobbing, and I don't know if we've, totally nailed this down for, anywhere written, but my axiom is everyone on the mob should be speaking a roughly equal amount of time. And that can help. And so, that repetition of like undoing the change and redoing it each time, because you're in a classroom setting, it's much more acceptable than in a business setting where you say, "Oh, well, we just threw away what we did and we did it again." Because your value to the customer is not the delivery of the software; it's the learning to the student, right? And so it's the frequency, the delivery frequency is really the iterations on the learning. And so everybody seeing somebody else navigate it will see something slightly different. They might learn new shortcuts and things. So that might be a good way to, or an experiment you can run to with approaching that.
oh, I like it. Yeah, I've definitely long ago figured out the miracle of repetition, right? It's like
Yeah.
a really, really good way to actually get to know something well. And I'll tell you one, we're doing something, it's not repetition, but it's I think a little bit in the spirit of what you just described. Um, we okay, we only have 2 hours twice a week, really an hour and 50 minutes twice a week. And we
Mhm.
don't even have that much time for mobbing because I usually have some kind of a reading and I have the students give a short presentation about the readings at the beginning of the class. So we have,
Sure.
maybe an hour and a half twice a week. That's not really a lot of time to put together non-trivial software.
Right.
So I've been assigning, hey, take a crack at this feature on your own, see
Hmm.
how far you get, and then when we're mobbing again, um, navigate us through what you have, something like that. And
Nice.
we've only done that a couple weeks, or maybe a couple sessions, but this actually worked really well. It's
Nice.
picked up the pace.
Yeah. Yeah, because you get a chance to verbalize what you've learned other ways, right? Yeah. And so
And
that kind of solidifies the learning, at least for me. Um, and kind of one follow-up question I had was, so it sounded like you had a list of topics, like design topics you wanted to hit. Um, and so as the code is morphing in front of you, in front of the class, the mob code, um, is it just you're kind of an opportunist, right? Like it almost kind of feels like if that is what you're doing, what I do as a coach, or as just another mob member, is kind of like, it seems like they don't know this design pattern or this principle, so I'm just waiting for an opportunity for it to shout out like, this is why we follow the law of Demeter and don't, give something more than it needs or something like that, and then we'll fix it together or that kind of thing. Like so, how do you tackle your list in the mob? I guess is my question.
just as you said, opportunistically. Um,
Nice.
uh, Now, actually, I'll tell you this is a maybe a good illustration of the knowledge spreading fast in the mob. So, but at the very beginning of the class, I had him do a little exercise, a design exercise, because I'm partly trying to teach them there's a kind an element of programming that you can do that doesn't involve source code, right? It's like just you can some things you can think through pretty well without writing any code. So I
Mhm.
had them design um, I had them make a state transition diagram for a garage door opener. Um, and this was, if you've done this before, this is like virtually nothing. But if you've never done it before, that it can take you about an hour, which is about what it took.
Yeah.
Um, and so then, and this shows you how naive I was when at the beginning of this class about mobbing. My plan was, okay, once they've finished making the the diagram, next class session, or hopefully that class session, but it was the next. I'll show them, I'll demo how to convert that into code. And yeah, luckily we didn't have time to do that on the day we did the diagram because that gave me time to realize, wait a minute, we should mob it. You know,
Nice.
duh. So I had them implement it by mobbing, and I went last, right, in the rotation. So that way the students could just do whatever they did. And of course, I'm going like, oh my God. It's like, but that's, I've seen, when I was in industry, I saw people do stuff like this where you have like something that's very statey, state transitiony, and they were working up if statements with loops inside the ifs and ifs inside the loops, and it's like, oh my, and you get and they're like, it's just a very very bug prone way to do it. But I've seen it a lot in industry. Um, so one student eventually hit on the idea of putting a variable for the state. Um, and I thought, oh, good, they've got it. I don't have to say anything. But no, I did. I finally, I think when I navigated, I finally said, I hate to be the navigator who says, let's stop what you're doing and do it my way. But I am, I guess it's my job as the teacher
Yeah.
to do
Yes.
some of that. So I said, hey, let's use a switch statement on that state variable. And then like I showed how to do like the first one and the first state, and then they got it right, and it's like, and they all got a chance to do it, and then the code, they all like refactored code and cleaned it up after we did that, and like, oh wow, we don't need this whole function anymore. And
Nice.
I think because of this gradual, like all I did was I put in just the seed of the idea. Like, here, you just need a switch statement, and you just change the state variable at the end of it, at the end of the case. Um, they all had their hands in the code as the navigator, right?
Yeah.
And as the driver.
Nice. Nice.
And I think they probably learned more from that than from anything else we've done, actually, because
Yeah.
it was a, the goal was to show them this design technique, whereas
Yeah.
the rest has been more opportunistic.
Nice. Nice. No, and I mean, and to be honest, that's often how it works. in the industry too. I've been on both sides of this, but basically, more recently it was like the mom wanted to do it a certain way, and I'm like, I've seen this movie before, but if I just, forcefully navigate from the start, they don't get to feel the pain. And so they leaned into doing it that way, I think, for about a day. And then I think the pain got to such a high level that I'm like, because I was just like, oh, yeah, let's try it and see how it goes. And then it was like, okay, now let's try this other way. And then it was really well received. And then they could replicate the new way, the other pattern, right? And so I think that pain can be a very good teacher. And I think it's hard sometimes to let someone experience the pain, but the pain is good.
Thanks for saying that. I've been using or saying that, put it in pretty much the exact same way with the word pain, right? It's like, I actually, oh yeah, we were one of our design patterns that we had a little student presentation about was the model view controller, and
Hmm.
we're making a diagram editor in C++, and we were thinking like, oh, model view controller seems like a natural fit for that, and I suggested, you know what? We don't understand the Qt library yet, which seems to have a lot of these things built in. So I actually don't know if going full on model view controller is actually the way to go. So I suggest that we wait until we feel the pain of not having it, right? And right, it's a really good design technique. Wait for the pain rather than complicate and create pain that you don't actually need. Um,
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's evolutionary design right there.
Actually, another illustration. Actually, this was opportunistic. I hate being pedagogical, right? You know what I mean? It's like I figure just work together, stuff will happen naturally. But so I don't think I was being pedagogical here, but I knew there was a lesson to be learned. Um, so I suggested on in one of these sessions, hey, let's like we're making like now a variety of different shapes. I said, hey, tell you what, just do copy and paste. Like move some code out to make a function for one of these shapes. This function's like 8 lines of code long. And then I said, just okay. And so they're going to say, okay, now we're going to do the next shape. So you know what? Just copy and paste it. And and students are like starting to go ew, and then we get to the third shape, which worked differently than the others. Because I said I want to wait until we get to that shape because it's not going to be, it's not going to fit the pattern. And then when we had all that, it's like, okay, now we refactor. And we got the thing down to like actual nice code we deleted all of those little functions. Um, and I think most of these students don't know yet the concept. Actually, a lot of them didn't know what the word refactoring meant, right? So they didn't know that a really effective design technique is just throw in some god-awful hack and then refactor it, right? Or wait till the
Right.
pain comes and then refactor it.
Yes.
And I think that's how I learned design, right? From pain.
Yeah, you just had, yeah, being in the industry for a little while, you end up having bugs come back to you and other things like that. So early career, it's a gauntlet of mistakes until you get there. And you know, sometimes students are just given, a textbook or very clear path on what to go forward with and don't get to experience that sort of thing.
Nice, nice. Cool, cool. So I know you're only partway through, but it would be kind of interesting to know how this experience of teaching this course, pros and cons compared with non-mobbing style of courses you've done. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm still kind of weighing, it's like it's still percolating through.
Fresh. Yeah.
Um, and it's hard to even assess what's good and what's bad, right?
Mm.
And the reason is if you just go on the basis of was this uncomfortable, was this difficult, was this confusing, you're gonna say, yeah, there's a lot of that, right, that the students are experiencing. But is that bad? I think discomfort and making mistakes when you have someone there to help you out and help you recover, it's actually I mean, it seems to me that's pretty much the ideal college class right there. I had one or two students, tell me that well, like when it was their turn, when it was their turn to navigate, um, they weren't sure what to do, right? They didn't have any ideas because they're new to this. They don't, they're some of them are, all kinds of different levels of C++ experience, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And so I said, oh, just ask for help, right? And like, pretty important lesson to learn, right? Is
Right.
you don't, it's hopeless to try to take all that burden on yourself. You got a whole team there, right? Um, and I remember going back to a course I taught in grad school many years ago. It was like one of the three like killer courses in their undergraduate curriculum. And one of the students in that course told me the next semester that in addition to all the subject matter, or beyond all subject matter, the most valuable thing he got from that course was to ask for help. Because we had it set up so everything was really hard and you pretty much always had to ask the lab instructor for help. Um,
Yep.
so
Yep.
right, if you don't have the experience of like getting a little out of your depth, you don't really learn this thing. But if I just tell you, oh, by the way, you should ask for help if you get into trouble, and that will be on the exam, right? This hasn't really been learned.
Yes, yes. The rote index card I would have with all the facts I needed to regurgitate on the test, right? I
Oh,
would just ask
yeah.
for help.
Yeah, and those are the facts you forget, right?
Yes.
Right.
As soon
Those
as
are the
the
things
test
you
is
forget.
over. Yeah.
But about the pros and cons of the course, I will say to it's hard to kind of engineer what topics we're going to learn, right? You know what I mean? Because we're just doing it opportunistically. There are going to be some interesting things about software design that we're not going to cover, and I was, fretting about that for a little while, and then I realized, wait a minute. If you did it by the standard, lecture and homework approach, there would still be a lot of stuff you didn't cover, right? So,
Yes.
what do you expect? We're gonna hit some, in a 4 month course, we're gonna hit some little subset of software design. That's all you can do, especially if you're only doing it 4 hours a week. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, that is the thing too, right? Because the mob is a living organism, sort of, so to speak, right? The most important thing might shift partway through to something else. And but my mind also goes to the library of katas they have for learning different things. And so, which is it, there's pros and cons of those too, right? Because usually a kata that's designed to learn design topic A is usually pretty small and discrete, and you usually sometimes you don't feel all the pains of making something bigger, which it sounds like what you all are doing. So like because I've done both before, kind of in learning time or lunch and learn type things where you do a small kata that has a really like specific point to it, right? Like, here's how to extract away dependencies that are slow, right? So you can, write tests, or here's how to do the strategy pattern or something. Those have a benefit, but also the long living code. So I've also done, I think we called them katas, but really, I don't know if we really followed the protocol of kata because we kept doing the code that we started last time, and it was kind of this like evolving code base, which sounds like more like what you're doing. And I've definitely seen the benefits of both because sometimes you can't learn things until it progresses to a certain level, which you can't accomplish in an hour, right?
yeah. Yep.
And but sometimes the big progression of code is so large it's hard to get the little nugget out of it, right? That the
Oh
small
yeah.
code can do. Yeah. So
I think a big challenge with academia is I've talked about the ship of Theseus thought where, the code base that you get hired onto in industry is often, older than the software developer that's writing in it now. So,
Yeah.
it's like the first time I was currently in college, I got my first job and I started working on the software, and the software was older than me. Like the code that was being written that started before I was born. And so I think that a really big challenge is that when people get out of school for the first time and they're thrown into that environment where there is literally decades of history behind the software that's being written. And they're part of that team for a short time because then they'll go find another job a couple of years later, and then somebody else will take it on. And so it's this kind of strange uh, thing where people only see little glimpses of where the software has been modified over the course of its lifetime, and you're trying to get the thing to continue working and to be maintainable and things. And often with school projects, you don't end up seeing that. You don't get the whole experience of like, this is a 20-year-old code base. We're going to do something to it to move it forward, and then you're fired, right? Like, or better yet, you found another job and now you're moving on. And so, not only do you have to learn quickly and then be adaptable to and deal with decisions made years ago. But it's also good to pay it forward and leave the code better than you found it so that the next person to work on it is going to have a good experience as well, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Actually, two thoughts about that. When I was talking with your cousin Cedar about the mob programming, um, he said that he long ago he had was at a company where they would hire a lot of recent college graduates to write software for them.
Yeah.
Uh, and he said that what he learned was they're pretty good like they were able to do homework assignments passably well, and
Right.
usually homework assignments don't have to be 100% right to get a passing grade, but they hadn't had the experience of living with the code. Those are his words, living with the
Mm.
code. And that so maybe we'll have some of that experience in this course. And the other thing was when I was asking people for definitions of software design as opposed to programming, because their definitions range from the code is the design to completely the opposite. And Rebecca Werfsbrock said the design is everything that goes beyond correctness that pertains to how habitable is the code base.
Nice.
She didn't like it when I said it makes it so you can live with the code because like that sounds like it's like derogatory, but
Yeah.
it was right. The it's not enough to be correct. I thought I haven't told the students this yet. I'm kind of waiting to spring it on them at an appropriate point.
Nice,
I like it.
nice.
Maybe when they watch this mob mentality.
Yeah. I'm like, what if they watch the episode?
They may get it right then.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, on another con of or a possible, is it a pro, is it a con? Another aspect of the course has been that we've spent more class time than I would have liked on installing Qt on everyone's system and getting
Right.
VS Code to work with CMake, right? Like all this kind of stuff. And just this isn't the cool part. But I
Right.
also think, well, wait a minute though. Um, Something I really didn't like about college was that they don't show you the little stuff that you absolutely must have under control, or you can't do the conceptually.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time when I was taking classes, every time I would log into one of the school computers, they had the appropriate version of C++ plus plus installed with all of, the CMake stuff in there, and there was never the experience of setting up the environment yourself. If so, I can relate to that.
Yeah. Right on, right on.
I,
Well,
I,
we are getting kind of close to
wouldn't-
the oh, go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was just saying I wouldn't want to throw total beginners into that, but
Right.
but at
Yes.
some
Right.
point you got to learn how to deal with the little thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, yeah, you gotta find that fluent edge for when that's the thing. Yep, for sure, for sure. Well, we are coming to the end of our time box, and this has been a good time. Thanks for being on the show, Ben. But before we close, is there anything you like to share or plug before we do close?
I wish I had something to plug. Right at the moment, I don't. Maybe I'll come begging for another mob mentality in another 6 months.
Perfect, perfect. That sounds great. We love it. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Ben. This has been quite wonderful to learn. Let us peek in your class, be a fly on the wall, and kind of hear how it's been going, the pros and the cons, and of trying out this mob thing in there. So we really appreciate your time and you sharing with us. To our audience, please like and subscribe. Please share. Please join this conversation. Have you tried mobbing in the classroom? How has it gone? Have you tried something like it? Pros and cons, tips, tricks, all of it. We'd love to hear what you think. So reach out on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, and more. And until next time, mob on everyone. Have a good one. See ya.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Ben.